They told me I couldn't dig a pond on my family's 150-year-old ranch. The HOA from the neighboring subdivision decided my land down since my great-grandfather's time was somehow under their thumb. Fines piled up, lawsuits loomed, and they tried to bury me under their petty rules. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. An old man with decades on this soil, a widower with nothing left to lose, and a secret buried in my property's history that could flip their world upside down. This is the story of how one man's promise sparked a battle that left an entire neighborhood in the dark. Where are you reading this from? Let me take you back to the start. My wife, Clara, was my anchor for 42 years. She'd sit with me on our creaky porch, humoring my obsession with old electrical maps, tracing the faded lines of power routes like they were poetry. "You're a detective, Tom," she'd tease, her fingers brushing the blueprints spread across our table. But for wires, she turned my quirk into something noble. Every evening, she'd bring me coffee, sit close, and listen as I explained how electricity pulsed through our small town like a heartbeat. 6 months ago, in a hospital room reeking of antiseptic and fading hope, Clara's grip on my hand weakened. The machines beeped, counting down her final moments. "Promise me a pond, Tom," she whispered, her voice barely breaking through the hum. "A spot to watch the sunset forever. Not, 'I love you,' not 'take care.' Just upon her last wish, simple yet sacred. I didn't know it would become my war. 3 weeks after her funeral, when the flowers had withered and the neighbors' casseroles were gone, I drove the first stake into the earth. Each marker was a vow. Here's where Clara would sit. There's the corner for evening light. That's the spot for the stone bench I'd carve. I measured every inch like it was gold, dew soaking my boots as I pictured the water catching the sunset's glow, the soft trickle of a waterfall in the quiet. This wasn't just a project. It was a monument to the woman who made me whole. As I dug the first shovelful, I glanced up at the power lines crisscrossing my yard like a giant's web. Clara once remarked, "Funny how that pole's older than our house." I'd never thought much of it, too caught up in voltage and grids. Now, with dirt under my nails, I wondered why the power company ran its main line through private land. Those cables hummed, feeding hundreds of homes, including the ritzy subdivision next door. Then came Evelyn Harper, rolling up in a gleaming golf cart, her designer outfit as crisp as her fake smile. "Mr. Larson," she said, stepping daintily around the fresh earth. "I sympathize with your loss, but Willow Creek has standards to protect property values." She handed me a glossy pamphlet, Community Aesthetic Guidelines, filled with manicured lawns and approved shrubs. I thought it was neighborly advice, maybe pity for a grieving man. I didn't realize she was declaring war. Evelyn's eyes scanned my weathered barn, the farmhouse that sheltered 4 generations, Clara's beloved gardenal with a sneer she didn't bother hiding. "We all want to preserve the area's charm," she said, her voice syrupy with false concern. "But we must consider the community's aesthetic." As if my 40 acres belonged to her HOA. As if she had any claim to land my family bought in 1873. What Evelyn didn't know was that I'd spent 40 years as an electrician, and I just noticed something about those power lines that could change everything. 3 days later, a certified letter hit me like a punch. It wasn't a polite nudge, it was a legal assault from Harper and Associates, a firm specializing in property disputes. I was banned from digging, ordered to pay $5,000 for an environmental study by GreenPath Solutions, a company owned by Evelyn's husband. It was extortion dressed in legal jargon, a shakedown stamped with official seals. At my kitchen table, the letter trembling in my hands, I spotted my electric bill nearby. A small note read, "Service via Larson Property Access. Why route lines through my land instead of public roads?" Rage clouded my thoughts, but Clara's photo on the table, her smile, and the wooden frame I'd made steadied me. "What would you do, Clara?" I asked the silence. Her voice echoed in my mind. "Fight, Tom. But fight smart." A neighbor, an old woman who'd seen the town's dramas unfold, spilled the truth over coffee on my porch. Evelyn had hated Clara for decades, her envy festering like a wound. Clara's roses always took first at garden club, her dinners drew crowds, her grace outshone Evelyn's forced elegance. "Clara Larson thinks she's better than us," Evelyn would hiss, her face twisting as Clara won another ribbon. Even Clara's humility seemed to mock her. Evelyn's vendetta survived Clara's death, targeting me to erase her legacy. The HOA's emergency meeting came next, held in a sterile bank conference room. I brought Clara's photo, speaking of her wish and our 42 years. Some eyes softened, but Evelyn was ready. She showed photos of me digging, snapped covertly, painting me as a rogue. Mr. Larson violated our standards, she declared, her voice ablaze. The vote was 11-0 against me, followed by a $1,000 fine. Whispers trailed me to my truck, stubborn old man. I'd never felt so broken. That night, alone with Clara's photo, I decided to fight. In our closet, behind her dresses still faintly scented with her perfume, I found her wooden box of family papers. Among deeds and letters was a 1890 contract, electrical transmission easement agreement. My great-grandfather, James Larson, had signed it with the municipal power company. One clause stopped my breath. The grantor reserves the right to request temporary cessation of electrical transmission for safety during construction, with 48 hours notice. I could shut off power to 200 homes, including Evelyn's precious Willow Creek, with a phone call. At the county archives, a dusty 1890 survey map confirmed it, showing the power line's path across my land. My lawyer, stunned, called it ironclad. For the first time since Clara's death, I smiled not with malice, but with the certainty of justice. Monday, I had my lawyer draft a letter to the power company, requesting a 48-hour shutdown starting Friday at 2 p.m. for construction safety. The manager called, nervous. This affects 200 homes, Mr. Larson. Medical equipment, families. Are you sure? I was calm. Friday at 2 p.m. Wednesday, I overheard Evelyn on her driveway, venom in her voice. That old man thinks he can humiliate me like Clara did for 20 years. I'll show him real power. It wasn't about standards, it was revenge against a dead woman. My guilt vanished. Thursday, Evelyn planned a media hit, telling a reporter to paint me as a monster when the power cut. But she'd miscalculated. Friday at 2 p.m., the power company truck arrived. Evelyn stood ready for the cameras, flanked by reporter Sarah Kim and 30 residents. Today, a man seeks revenge on a community, she proclaimed. Sarah's questions were sharp. Mr. Larson, how do you justify endangering families over a pond? The crowd murmured, smelling my defeat. But I pulled out the easement agreement, its faded ink a weapon. This isn't revenge, I said, voice steady. It's respect for the law, for property rights, for my wife's dying wish. At 2:30, the power died. Willow Creek fell silent. My generator-lit house a beacon in the dark. Evelyn's composure shattered. This isn't legal, she screamed, as Sarah's camera rolled. Then came the twist. County Inspector David Ruiz, called by Evelyn to nail me, checked the boundaries. His laser measurements, cross-referenced with the 1890 map I'd found, revealed Willow Creek's entrance gate and 200 feet of wall were on public land, a violation costing $50,000 and demolition. Evelyn's face drained of color. Sarah pounced. Mrs. Harper, how do you justify blocking Mr. Larson while breaking county law? Evelyn stammered, silenced. The crowd's murmurs turned to shock. The woman who fined me had been illegal for a decade. That evening, Sarah's report went viral, exposing Evelyn's hypocrisy. She resigned as HOA president, sold her house, and fled. The gate was raised. The HOA's dues doubled to pay the fine. Neighbors brought apologies and casseroles, ashamed of following Evelyn. I resumed the pond, talking to Clara as I worked. In August, I found her unsent letter in her cookbook. Do something beautiful, Tom. Prove love conquers all. By September, the pond was dune clear water, a stone bench, Clara's flowers catching the sunset. Sitting there, I felt her beside me, our 42 years alive in the water's glow. The real victory wasn't defeating Evelyn. It was keeping Clara's promise, proving love outlasts even the pettiest tyrants. What would you do to honor someone you loved? What promises would you fight for? Share your story. If this hit home, type promise kept.